Welcome to This Week in Heresy, Episode 5, Body Shame, Agency, and the Imago Dei, with our returning guest, via Skype, Reverend Lee Whittaker. Hi, Lee. Welcome back to This Week in Heresy.
Hey, Gina. Thank you. It's great to be back on This Week in Heresy. I get to be a heretic again. Yay.
So this week, we're going to talk about something that's kind of both near and dear to our hearts, and about body image, because we talk a lot in the progressive community that we are all made in the image of God, and that we're, we're all God's children, and that He doesn't make imperfect vessels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Yet, we seem to cling to these notions of, gender binary.
That.
Yeah. Or that everybody has to be thin.
Oh, that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or that everybody has to look a certain way.
Oh, dear.
Or has to have certain body parts and certain paces that look a certain way to be called a certain thing.
Yes.
So...
Okay. Yes, we've had many conversations like this, yes.
Yeah. And, it really gets me that we want to be inclusive of people, but people don't think about what they say or do that is exclusionary around the idea of the body. And go ahead.
Well, I think that, it's all fine and dandy when it's on paper, but when you have people actually walking into the room, it becomes a whole different ballgame. It's a whole different story.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, just disability alone, people, they're like, oh, yeah, we want to be inclusive, and yet there's no ramp for a wheelchair, or, there's no hearing devices, there's no way for somebody who's hearing impaired or blind or something to participate in the service, or, get all the materials or read the materials,
Right. Like you'll have a ramp going into your building, but there's really no place for a person in a wheelchair to sit. Unless it's all the way in the back or something, where a lot of places now have some areas where they've taken out some of the chairs or pews so that a person in a wheelchair can sit with their attendant, or their caregiver, or whatever you want to call it. I think that's you're starting to see that a lot more. There's a lot of things that go on with coding around that, building codes. And for some places, if you want certain grants, you have to have your building meet a certain, requirements when it comes to coding for people with disabilities.
Right.
Which I think is important.
Oh, absolutely. But then there's also the idea of hidden disabilities.
Oh, those,
right?
Yes.
So, you may have accommodations for a visible physical disability. Yeah, you could have somebody with fibromyalgia, who has a hard time walking or has a hard time sitting in a hard wooden pew.
Yes.
Or somebody like even me that has a back injury that can't stand for long periods of time. And yet, there's a lot of stand up, sit down, and all of that.
Right.
And I've been to some places where it's like, they don't always say stand if you're willing or able,
Right. Like I had, just this morning, in fact, I was doing communion before the summer classes started, and one of the classes is being taught in the chapel, and the chapel has those hard pews or hard wooden chairs.
Right.
And there was this woman that came, and she was looking for a cushion, and we had to find a cushion that she could sit on, and we had things that you could sit if you were sitting on the floor, like meditating, is sort of that sort of position, or these big couch cushions, but there was nothing that you could put on there that was really small.
Right.
that would make it comfortable for her. And she said that she has an injury to her hip and that she just can't stand sitting on this hard wooden chair.
Right.
And, we eventually managed to jury rig something for her, which worked, I hope. But I saw that as a problem.
Oh, yeah.
And at my church, where I go, then we have those cushions that like you would put on a chair, that you could tie on. We have we had a stack of those. So if you want to sit on those, you can just pull them over. We grab one of those when you're going to your seat.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of places I can't sit on those chairs for a long time.
Yeah. And it's hard for me too. And it's better than it's better than standing for long periods of time, but it's still difficult, long slog, especially if it's a really long service.
Well, yeah, and what you said is important, is that it's the unseen disability, that the challenges that somebody has, and the problem with that too is that if you go to say something often, and I've had this happen where I was doing a worship service and they wanted me to sit Indian style on the floor. And I can't do that, okay? You will need a crane to get me up afterwards. I used to be able to do it, but I just can't do it anymore.
Right.
And, the person who, and I mentioned it to them, I said, I really need to sit in a chair. And, I understand being the, pastor and worship designer that, you have this image of everybody sitting on the floor and meditating and nice. But realistically, not everybody can do that.
Right.
And so I kind of got the, tisking, if I could read the thought bubble. And I'm like, and after that, I there was a part of me that really didn't want to stay.
Right.
There's a part of me that just wanted to leave because I felt like, there's part of me, I'm sorry if it's just too much trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't feel welcomed.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like I'm sorry, let me try to figure it. It was more of like, okay, well, you're just going to be a pain in the butt.
Right. And it's, I think a lot of the language around the body and especially body and health is problematic. And I've done workshops at Pecan about this. And, and there's a lot of history that stems particularly from Christian history. We can Augustine and all of that and Greek history as well, where asceticism is what you're supposed to strive for, or sex and food is like the worst thing you can give your body ever. That, and we have such a long history of that denial and that hating the body because it's your body and because it's flesh. And yet we say, God made humans, God made people. And
that's right.
And supposedly we're in God's image. So if the flesh is bad, but we're made in God's image, then what does that say about God?
Right. So you're saying that God's imperfect. Maybe you can do that, but I'm not gonna.
Right.
You said a few things there. Let's face it. This fleshy mass that we live in is sometimes messy.
Right.
And but it's messy for a reason. Sometimes. Sometimes people have different issues with different things, and if we really want to be inclusive and understand that this is the way God made this person, this is where this person is at, then we have to go to broader lengths to think about to bring that person in instead of shaming them about what's going on with them.
Yeah. And And it doesn't really matter whether somebody is thin or fat or whatever, or has a disability, whatever. You know, if the language you're using, even from the pulpit, and I've challenged some people on this.
I know you have.
I mean, even if you're using that kind of language from the pulpit, if you're using the language of the diet industry that says your body is bad because it doesn't conform to what we're supposed to look like according to them, that's a problem.
Yes. And it's a big way to shame people. It's like the big wacky stick, you know. Mm-hmm. Well, you're not thin. You're one of the larger people. I remember when I was a kid, I always had big feet as a kid, and and this is just an example. We had the roller skating mobile come for recreation one day, and they wanted to make sure that they had enough sizes for everybody so that we could all go roller skating. Right. And my teacher was going around asking everybody their shoe size. So I gave my shoe size, which was, of course, at the end. And I told her a size 10. And then, like, all of a sudden, I became the joke of everybody's day when the teacher said, "Oh, so you're a Bigfoot."
Oh, good Lord.
So, not that I wasn't already picked on enough. Okay. So now they've just got something more to pick on me about, which is now teacher endorsed. Okay. Right. Well, the teacher made fun of you, so we can too. Right. And I, not that I like to roller skate anyway, I can do enough damage to myself with shoes. Right. It was just horrible. And I just sat there. I don't even think I put them on. I just sat alongside the curb. Right. Yeah. And
I could totally get that. I mean, because there's a lot of times just being a fat woman, there's just some things. And I know people don't do it intentionally because we're so conditioned. Right. But
it's a theology. I mean, if you think of the word theology, people think of theology as it's just about religion. A theology is a framework of meaning. Right. So if your framework of what the body looks like and this is what you think about it as, that's all you're going to know. And that's how you're going to define yourself and everybody else around you. Right. So if your family made fun of everybody who was, a person, people of size or people who are, disabled or whatever, then that's what you're going to learn.
Yeah, exactly. And it's frustrating because, like I said, nobody really means to do it. It's just, you say it. And especially like around aspects of health, right? People like healthy lifestyle this and healthy lifestyle that. It's like, well, if you have an chronic illness, you're not going to be healthy by society standards, but you're healthy enough in the scope of what's going on with you.
Right. I had lost some weight a while ago, and then I gained some back. And, I had a friend of mine come up to me and say, since you had surgery, you kind of put on some weight, and I'm kind of concerned about that with your heart. That was fine. That wasn't the sort of thing where somebody came up to me and said, "Well, God, you've gotten fat," and then that shaming sort of way, because that's how I grew up, and that's how a lot of people grew up, thinking that if you were above a size 12, you were fat.
Yeah, but even that can be problematic, and I'm just saying this because this is how I would feel if somebody did that to me. It'd be like, well, yeah, I've been on medications that exacerbate weight. Yeah. And
that happens.
Yeah, because I know that some of the medications you've been on do have some of those side effects.
Right. And yes. And for people who are on meds like that, and you never, the bottom line is you never know what somebody is dealing with.
Exactly.
So to say something about their size or about how they're, why are you limping like that? Come on, move along,
or, oh my God, you've lost so much weight. You look fantastic. But, it could be somebody who's just had chemotherapy and just
hello.
died.
Right.
Right.
Yes. Did you get your hair cut too? Yeah. I've had that. I know somebody who was going for chemotherapy, and they wound up they went for a very short haircut, and the person, I love your hair. It looks great. And she was like, yeah, I had it cut because I have cancer and I'm on chemotherapy. And the person just did not know what to do. Did not know how to respond to that. Now, I'm not saying that we should just go and be, beating each other over the heads about it, but I think it's a matter of re-educating people, bringing people to an awareness about this. What are you really saying to somebody? How would you feel if somebody said that to you?
Right. And, and one of my things, and I mentioned this previously, is, I really want, one of the things I really want to do is make clergy aware of what they're doing, especially those who preach a lot.
Yes, and you did that quite well, my friend.
Thank you. Well, it's important because, if you're a person who's supposed to be worried about the spiritual welfare of your parishioners, if you're, stealthily shaming them or stealthily shaming somebody who say maybe has an eating disorder, who has anorexia or something, how are you taking care of your congregation that way?
Right. Exactly. So I really think that being spiritually fit is incredibly important. If you're feeling spiritually fit and you're feeling connected to whatever your source of the divine is, whatever you call it or them or whatever, and you're in relationship with that and you're taking care of yourself that way, it's wellness that comes from inside out. And you can see those people, and those people who have that, they just transcend whatever else is happening with them on the outside. It doesn't even, they could be, they could be large, short, tall, whatever. It doesn't matter. Right. Because it's their spirit is just so alive and so vibrant, and that's what you see. Right. And I think that as religious leaders, that's really where, is the aim, is to really get people into that place of spiritual fitness. Right. Exactly. I think as religious leaders, that's the thing that we really need to work with people on and work with our congregations on as the point. Because if you're feeling spiritually fit, right, it's just going to naturally or organically, you're going to be taking care of yourself in other ways. You're going to be getting enough sleep. You're going to be eating the right things. You're not going to be doing emotional eating. And you're going to have people in your life who, will love you enough to say, if they notice something going on, hey, I see you kind of, I see you just seem a little off. Are you okay? And that's, I think that's the thing that we have to really look towards as religious leaders. And even as it's not even just as religious leaders. That's something that I really believe religious leaders should talk about from the pulpit. Yeah. But as congregants and as people, something to aspire to. Yeah. And also taking responsibility for the words that you speak, because as a religious leader, your words have power, and your words have weight. And and if you're talking about things and not really thinking about what you're saying, or you learn about this and you're still not really putting that into practice and still saying things and knowing that you could possibly be causing harm, you have a responsibility to not do that. Yes, you do. Exactly. And that's why I really think it's great that there's this, it's very slow. I personally would like to see it a lot faster. But it's God's time. It's not mine. And we're never on sync.
Right, right.
But I think, regarding gender variant people,
Right.
I think that awareness is slowly starting to be raised.
Yeah.
Just even the incident with Laverne Cox, when Katie Couric was asking
that was
her
beautiful.
about, and what she said was just brilliant. It's really, it's none of your business.
Yeah.
It's that's really none of your concern what's there. It's about who I am on the inside.
Yeah. I mean,
That
yeah, I thought that was brilliant. I love her, Laverne Cox, because, would she have asked a cisgendered person the same question? No.
Right. No, she wouldn't have. And really, why are you thinking about that anyway? That's a little weird.
Yeah.
What is there some sort of, cis privilege that you get to know that you get to ask inappropriate questions?
Yeah.
To somebody? That's, no.
Well, it kind of ranks. It also kind of like ranks up there with asking like lesbians, like, so how do you do it? It's like, really?
And the thing is, if you really sat down and told those people, they would get more than what they really wanted to know in the first place. Okay.
Although here's the thing too, and this is about being a minority and educating other people, is that, especially in college, I had no problems with doing the sex ed stuff with my peers because I figure, my mom was really progressive with me in that, and she did a lot of work around me so that I would not be ignorant of my body and my sexuality and what sex was and all that. So, when I came out as bisexual, I had a friend of mine who came up to me and legitimately asked, so, how does it work? And, and she wasn't asking out of malice. She wasn't asking out of like that weird, morbid curiosity thing. She was asking because she really wanted to know. And I think there's a line there. You can tell if somebody's asking out of spite or malice versus somebody who really just wants to know. And I think it's up to us to say, well, sure, I'll answer your question, or no, I really don't think I can answer that question right now. Instead of just instead of just going, well, just go Google it.
Because when somebody like who is, trans or bisexual or differently able or something, they all of a sudden they become the person who has to teach. And if I'm paying a lot of money for a class, I don't want to teach.
Right.
I'm paying a teacher to teach. I'm paying you thousands of dollars with my federally funded school money, okay? Which I'm going to be paying off for a long time. You teach me, damn it.
Yeah.
However, I'm not opposed to somebody coming up to me and saying, I'm trying to understand this question, some things here. And I know this is a personal question, but I was wondering if you could, tell me some things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mind. There also, like for trans people, I know sometimes there's this. I know a guy who used to ask the trans person anything,
right?
And so he knew going into that he was going to be asked a lot of questions,
right?
But that going in there. But for somebody to just come up and ask you a question like that, about well. What is the condition of your genitals? Like,
no,
no,
not okay.
And I feel like saying, hello, is your penis as large as you said it was online?
Oh, yeah.
Seriously, it's none of anybody's business,
right?
But so I think there's a way of. I think people really have a hard time talking about sex in general.
Oh, absolutely.
People have a hard time thinking about it abstractly, which is really what's starting to happen more as you talk about a
Right.
gender spectrum,
Right.
where not everybody is doing what you thought they were going to be doing 15 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
So people are uncomfortable with that. So how do we embrace that? How do we have that kind of a conversation?
Yeah. And more importantly, how do we have that publicly?
Yeah, that's even harder because we hit on a lot of people have a lot of shame around sex. People have a lot of shame about talking about sex. Fear, like even just saying the body parts.
Oh, no kidding.
You're a trans woman. Do you have a woo woo?
I think I'm kind of fond of hoo ha though. It's kind of funny.
Hoo-ha. Do you have a hoo ha? Well, I had a hoo ha watching TV the other day. Boy, that was just hilarious.
Or vajayjay. That's a funny one.
Yeah, it's like okay. I think we're talking about two different things here.
Right.
And it's also this thing about bathrooms too. It's like,
yeah.
Really, do you have a sign on your bathroom door in your home that says men, women, transgender, unisex? No, there's no sign at all. You knock on the door and see who's in there and who's not.
Yeah.
And then you go, really, what I do in there, how I do it is none of anybody's business. If I want to stand, squat, sit, right. I can go in and self-select.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think, as we're talking about this, and I'm starting to realize just how the amount of shame and shame-based this whole our culture is about talking about sex. And I'm not saying everybody. I don't want to generalize because there's people, who do this quite well and people who do it a lot more eloquently than I probably ever will.
Right.
But but people they don't know how to ask a question around sex that's done appropriately.
I'd extrapolate that to anything about the body, really. You know, people just don't, the body is taboo in as far as how it looks, unless it looks like what society tells you it's supposed to look like. And that's different for different cultures, but at least in our U.S. culture, it's, waif thin, white.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And fair. And it's just like, no, that's not how reality is.
Right.
Not at all.
For a guy to be beefy,
right.
Yeah. And, is this, if we go back to talking about the Imago DA, well, this is the way God created me. This is the way I look. And maybe I'm a few pounds heavier than I'd like to be, but for the most part, and part of this is age. And I know that there's some things that just ain't going to happen. I am never going to be the beefcake that I kind of had hoped I would be. And I know that, requires going to the gym, but I don't like gyms.
Okay. Right.
I would there's other things I would rather do than spend my time in a gym.
Yeah.
And Lord knows I tried, and Lord knows I sat and beat myself up over, and made myself totally depressed about it. And finally I was like, I'm over 50 right now. There's just some things that ain't going to happen. And I'm okay with that. Gravity has had its hold on me.
Yeah. Well, even me, I mean, I'm 38, so I'm still a youngin', but, my body at 38 is completely different than my body at 28.
Oh, sure.
And it can't do as much as it did when it was 28.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think there's so much shame. I keep going back to this thinking about the shame and the body.
Right.
And, I know people who, have issues that, where they eat, do a lot of emotional eating. And I know I've done it, and I know when I'm doing it, because I'll ask myself, do you really need to be doing this right now? What is going on with you? But just the way people, like you said, are presented. This is the way your body should look. This is what's going to make you popular. This is what's going to make you, wealthy. This is going to get you the good job, the good partner. You're going to have great sex.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's a lie.
It is a lie.
It's a pretty lie.
I think big girls do it for them. Do it for me.
This isn't to say that somebody shouldn't diet or somebody shouldn't lose weight if they want to. It's more about your agency over your own body. Exactly. because our society and the diet industry tends to treat people like children, that they don't know what's good for them, and you know what? That's crap.
Right.
It's complete and utter crap.
Right. If what you're doing to your body, this is the way how I view it. If what you're doing to your body is getting in the way of your relationship with God,
right,
then that's a problem.
Yeah. Or just getting in the way of your life.
Right.
But there's a caveat here, is that, if you're not feeling well or you have a chronic disorder, how do you define that within that scope of wellness and your relationship with God?
Well, wellness is a whole thing. It's like, with the way we view healthcare is just horrible.
Yeah, that could be another whole episode in and of itself.
That's a whole other episode, which can bring up a whole lot of body shame for people.
Right.
When you don't, have access to healthcare, you don't have access to
birth control.
Birth control. Don't even get me going, girl.
Oh, yeah.
Don't wind my watch about that.
Yeah, I was reading about Hobby Lobby earlier today, and I was just like, nah.
Yes, talk about, no, never mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's another show. When you're put down by a system, when you're oppressed by a system that is larger than you, that you're supposed to be depending on to get you well.
Right.
How can you feel well?
Absolutely.
When you have to go and you have these enormous co-payments that you can't pay, how are you supposed to feel well?
Or, you're going into a system that thinks it's your fault that you're sick.
Yes. That too.
That applies a moral standard to wellness.
Right. And you talk about things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and things like that, where they don't really quite know what it's about, but they're very real, and complex, I don't want to say diseases, but
conditions.
That can really take away your self-worth as a person and take away any reason why you would want to feel well. So you automatically have your wellness taken away from you.
Right.
Before you even start.
And I'd argue that also takes away some of your agency as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, you have this disease or condition, I should say, that takes away a lot of what is going on around you and what your body can and cannot do. And then suddenly you're supposed to have some sort of moral control over how your disease affects you? No. Right.
Right. And it's like, you have to go get your entitlements.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Another. Right? Yes, I'm sorry, but you know what? I am entitled to be well.
Yeah.
We are entitled to be well. That should be something that is God-given. And, if doctors take a Hippocratic oath
to
do no harm, So if you're turning people away because they don't have a copay, they don't have the money for it, or they don't have access to good, health care, that's doing harm.
Yeah. Or you're not doing healthcare because either they're really skinny and you think they don't need it, or they're too fat and you think they're just lazy and stupid.
Right. So you're basically that this is a system that really gets in the way of, it gets in our relationship with the divine.
Yeah.
It impedes on it.
Absolutely.
So, and when you are feeling that kind of oppression, it just compounds everything. Why would you want to get out of bed?
Yeah.
Why bother going out looking good? Because you just feel like a piece of crap.
Yeah.
You feel like you're not worthwhile. You feel as though you feel unlovable.
Uh-huh.
So if you feel unlovable, you're going to feel unloved by God.
Yeah, exactly.
So it really, affects your spiritual fitness. And it makes your connection, it makes it impossible to have your connection with God.
Right. Or you feel that God's abandoned you.
That too, you feel like, where is God? And God is there, but you have these roadblocks put up for you by, this institution that's supposed to be taking care of you.
Right.
I know for a long time there was times I wouldn't go to the doctor. It just terrified me. I just didn't want to hear what they had to say, and that's then I had to go against my will, so to speak.
More or less,
More or less. And I had to relearn that. And I learned that there were doctors who really do care and really do see. And it comes to being visible,
right?
Spiritually visible, if you can, when we don't feel seen, I think it's because our spirits aren't being seen, the spirit of who we are.
Right.
We're being judged by weight. We're being judged by freckles. We're being judged by the fact that we can't sit for a long period of time, or we can't sit in the instant, or skin color, or whatever, and when we don't feel seen like that, how can we feel like that God sees us? Because we just feel rejected.
Yeah.
So God is out there somewhere, and we know that it turns. We feel like God must feel that way, and that's absolutely not true.
Right. And I'll bring it back around to pastoral responsibility too. Because if somebody's not feeling seen in church, or is hearing words that make them feel that they're not being seen, or that they're being dismissed because of something, then they're not coming back, and you've damaged them in a spiritual way.
Yes.
And that's really not okay.
Spiritual harm. And I think, there's emotional harm and there's physical harm, and those two are, both, either one of them is bad.
Right.
But I think when you get to spiritual harm, I think it's the deepest kind of harm.
Oh yeah.
That you can do for a person.
Well, I mean, from my own personal experience, and I can go on this experience if people want to ask me about it. But, from my personal experience, that kind of harm is devastating, because you feel like you have no place in the universe.
Yes.
And that you have no place with deity. I mean, it's just devastating. Yeah,
and it kind of puts it, you think, I would just rather be dead. Then you think, well, I'd rather, if I'm dead, then I'll probably be in the same situation anyway, because I would be going to someplace where I'm not going to be seen. So what am I going to do? I'm just stuck here in this awful place of invisibility.
Yeah.
And you go to a thing where I don't matter.
Yep.
Yep. And that's a dangerous place for a person to be in. You're right.
Yeah.
Spiritual leaders need to not just, address, do some pastoral care for those people.
Right.
but the pastoral care also has to go to the wider congregation of, let's talk about some of the reasons why we're here, why we're in that space of shame around bodies. Let's talk about these. Let's talk about these topics from the damn pulpits.
Yeah.
And you hear a lot of people say, well, I don't want to make people feel uncomfortable. I'm worried about my cash cows. I know churches have have financial problems, but you know what? If you start telling the truth and you start talking truth to people are going to respond to that.
Yeah. And
it might be rough at first. The thing in ministry, you comfort the disturbed and you disturb the comfortable.
Exactly.
And sometimes you got to do that. And I'm not saying to do this, to go up there with a big whappy stick and start, doing the hooting and hollering and banging on the pulpit and stuff. I'm talking about, just really going to the deeper issues. We have to stop doing the surface stuff, and talk about, what have you learned? What is, and one way to do that is to look at the demographic of your congregation. So if you have people who are like older, so then you kind of got an idea of what it was like. You have people like around my age, they were growing up like in the early, 60s, and you start thinking about all that stuff, what was going on at that time. So you know how to address it.
Yeah, yeah.
And
if you're younger than your congregation, you can do some research or you can talk to people.
Right. Or you find somebody who can. You get a guest preacher.
Yeah.
Who can do that. Because if, I don't have to know everything for my church.
Yeah.
If I know, like, you can talk about something and you have the skill set and the toolbox to be able to go and up on the pulpit and address my congregation about a certain topic, I'm going to call you. I'm going to say, Jana, there's this stuff going on in my congregation. I'd really like for you to come and talk about this because you're the best person for this.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that control is really, it can be harmful too.
Yeah.
We can't be all things to all people.
Yeah. And, it's a hard lesson to learn, but it's a really good lesson to learn, I think. And I really wish we could talk a lot more about this. I know we could, but we are running out of time.
Yes, we could.
I'm sure it'll come up again. I'm sure it'll probably come up with some other people. At some point, I'd like to kind of have more of a round table discussion.
I just have to say, did you see the picture about the I think he's a baseball player. He was he posed semi-nude. And he's a heavier set baseball athlete.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
And I thought, I'm like, great, yes,
awesome.
And just that we're starting to see some of that. I always say, some things look bleak, but you got to find the little glimmers of hope and capitalize on those.
Right.
So yeah.
Well, and don't read the comments.
Yeah. Don't get me. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Reverend Lee, for coming back on again.
Thank you for having me as a heretic this week.
Yeah, and we'll put your links again up on the show notes.
Great.
And I'll let you know if there's any discussion on the website around this.
Okay.
And thank you again.
Thank you. And I love to be a heretic.
Excellent. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I'd like to thank Reverend Lee for joining us this week. And if you have any comments, questions, or would like to read the show notes, you can find us at thisweekinheresy.com. You can subscribe to our podcast via iTunes or the Stitcher app on iOS or Android. As always, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.